Good evening. My name is Nikki Activis, and I will be speaking to you today about the critical role of navigating workplace conflict. So, to give you a little roadmap, first we're going to give a brief definition of what navigation of workplace conflict looks like, or just in general, what workplace conflict is. And then we're going to talk about why this matters at all. Then we're going to go down to seeing this through the lens of communication for leaders within the workplace and just professionally in general. Before we head to unpacking what navigating workplace conflict looks like, then we will use some concepts, communication concepts and theories through a hypothetical scenario before we head into our final thoughts. So, navigating workplace conflict is the process of effectively managing and resolving disagreements or disputes that arise between individuals or groups of individuals professionally or within a professional setting or within a workplace. This could be virtual, this could be in person, hybrid situation, whatever you have it. Yeah. So, it is super vital to understand how to navigate these conflicts from a workplace perspective, because if you don't, projects can fail, um, workplaces can fall apart, work groups can fall apart, and just not a good look, right? Um, so the reason why these things often happen is because workplaces are really diverse environments where sometimes they might not look like such, but everybody brings their own identities, their own cultures. There's also a hierarchy that's often involved in workplaces, and all of these just intersect with each other when we go to work. So, why does any of this matter? Well, first and foremost, failing to address conflict can lead to diminished trust between coworkers and higher ups, can reduce morale, so work doesn't get done or it gets done slowly or terribly. And it also just heightens systematic inequalities. Disparities between colleagues and subgroups within the workplace, right? So it's really, again, important to understand conflict through a communication lens. So where personalities are clashing, where objectives are different between individuals or groups of individuals. And workplace conflicts are super complex, right? So it can oftentimes involve maybe a general misunderstanding, or a message was interpreted not well, or what have you, right? So navigating these conflicts and resolving them is super essential for leaders who want to foster inclusiveness and equitability within the workplace, right? So there's a need to understand cultures, identities, and power dynamics, and how those are going to play into conflict resolution. So we're going to unpack this a little bit further on what really builds into workplace conflict. So first and foremost, when it comes to conflict within inside the workplace, we need to focus on impact over intention. So to bring in a little bit of my personal life as an educator, as a public educator in high school, oftentimes teachers are told uh, by each other and often their admin staff to, to put intention over impact. Oh, well, impact. Intention means more, right? Maybe they didn't mean what they said. Maybe they means what they, did. Just assume best intentions, which, in my opinion, is rather toxic, because just because somebody meant well doesn't mean that they did well, right? Uh, there's a phrase, hurt people hurt people. That's not an excuse, that's an explanation, right? You're still not allowed to hurt somebody else uh, because of your inability to communicate. Um, so oftentimes, people saying, "Oh yeah, intention," uh, there's still misunderstandings, right? And so focusing on intentions rather than the actual impact of their words or action can start to cause misalignment, and then further down the road, more misunderstandings and unresolved issues, which is not great for getting work done. Secondly, when there's workplace conflict and navigating it, thinking about the barriers of hierarchical structures. So these structures can create barriers between employees and management, or teaching staff and administration staff. And, if you feel like you're lower on the rankings when it comes to this structure, you might feel hesitant to express disagreements or raise concerns, uh, in turn, stifling any open communication and exacerbating unresolved issues. And sometimes it comes up when it's too late and things blow up and are not even anywhere close to being resolvable anymore. So with those things being said, there's also, when we're navigating these workplace conflicts, the influence of cultural norms. So not even just norms at work, but our own personal cultural norms that we bring in from our personal lives. People are from different cultural backgrounds. Um, for instance, as somebody who is from the northern Midwest, uh, the Midwest here in Kansas is somewhat similar, but there are slight differences, right? And I also personally bring my immigrant culture here, as being a firstborn American. My culture looks a little different than maybe somebody whose family has been in the US for a lot longer, or uh, who grew up in a different part of the country. Maybe they grew up in the South, right? So our own personal cultural norms, along with our workplace norms, are gonna influence how we approach conflict, right? So some cultures may prefer direct confrontation, others may lean towards more indirect forms of expression. And this can really affect conflict resolution strategies overall. Next, we have the role of identity. So you've got your culture, and then you've got your identities, and we all wear many hats. We all have many different identities. Some are more salient at certain times than others. And identity plays a huge role in workplace conflict. Um, there's implicit biases and cultural misunderstandings. These can create significant barriers to effective communication, and it can just decrease psychological safety among team members from all sides, right? If we don't feel safe working with each other, job doesn't get done, or it doesn't get done well, which is not super great. So lastly, while unpacking this, we have the importance of mindfulness and leadership. So being a mindful leader is essential in recognizing the deeper communicative roots of conflict, right? So a good mindful, don't want to say good, but a mindful leader needs to understand there are going to be cultural differences. People are going to bring in their different identities and political beliefs. And humans are social creatures, and it's really hard not to bring those things to work with us, right? So a mindful leader needs to be aware of not just visible behaviors, but also the underlying identities and cultural factors that influence a team's dynamics moving forward. So that leads us to our example. So my example here is a Black female employee voices their concerns in a team meeting about a marketing campaign's lack of cultural sensitivity. Um, And on the other hand, after she voices this concern, her white male supervisor immediately downplays the comment and says, let's not make this political. So there's a few different things going on here. I know this seems relatively simple. It seems there could be a lot of things going on, right? So first, we have the face threat, right? So the supervisor's response damages the employee's identity, integrity by dismissing her concerns, right? Saying, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, it's not going to be an issue, or you're not really the authority on this, or maybe who cares if you are the authority, which is not great. Okay. Secondly, there's cultural misalignment, right? So the employee may come from cultural contexts that values directness and speaking truth to power. The supervisor may prioritize conflict avoidance, which not a great norm for a supervisor in general, uh, but it's also not really putting any trust into your employee while devaluing what she's saying to you, saying, hey, listen, this is not going to play out well. And then there's also in-group and out-group bias, right? So the supervisor aligns with the silent majority in the room, failing to validate the out-group's members' experience. So saying, well, the majority of without saying without saying, hey, what you're saying, not super important to us, not super important to me, not super important to anybody else in the room. So just tone it down, basically, right? So the overall outcome of this is trust erosion between, from the employee's standpoint, and the conflict's just going to keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper, digging that hole, right? And it's going to potentially affect retention and team cohesion, right? So not only has the supervisor said, I don't really care what you think or whatever your knowledge base is, but it's also showing other team members, hey, this person's not important to our team. I don't value their opinion, so why should you? Right? And thinking about my own personal perspective right now, moving from one school district to another, I've experienced similar things to this where, you know, try to come up with a solution and just the trust was eroded, conflict deepened, and it was time to leave. And retention, you want retention, right, in the workplace, because having to train somebody else costs money, and you're losing expertise as well, right? So I've gotten to the portion of my 2 practical recommendations for navigating workplace conflict. So first and foremost, conflict competency trainings for management. So equipping managers with the skills to identify and navigate conflicts rooted in identity is really going to allow for more effective resolution and promotes a healthier workplace environment. So identity can mean race, ethnic background, sexual orientation, gender identification, whatever, all of that stuff. You're never going to know everything, right? You don't know what you don't know, but you can become a mindful leader. You can train people to be able to identify these conflicts in advance, or maybe these clashes in advance, right? Secondly, inclusive communication norms for all staff. So not just for managers, but establishing clear communication norms. An organization can foster an atmosphere where employees feel safe to express their concerns, leading to early conflict resolution and enhanced team cohesion. So this can't be rules for the not for me situation. It has to be the buck stops here. Management, admin, whoever is in charge needs to also be held to these standards, needs to also show that they are taking accountability when things go wrong and demonstrate that to their staff as well. So, final thoughts here around the importance of understanding identity and power in conflict resolution. Right? So, effective conflict navigation really transcends verbal exchanges, right? So, it involves the acknowledgement of identities, of individuals or groups of individuals involved, and the impact of power dynamics. Um, so, again, from my own previous experience, uh, I was previously under an admin who did not understand why people did not approach her when they had issues with her or issues with decisions that she made or why people wouldn't ask her questions or why they didn't feel comfortable with her in the room when they were trying to resolve conflict with another member of the team. And I'm blunt, and we had those conversations about, well, you're not necessarily a good listener, or you're not very good at reading the room, you're not very good at code switching, you're not very good at um, understanding cultural backgrounds, and you bring some of your own biases into these conversations. And I can't say if that helped or not, um, but she had been doing this for a very long time and still didn't somehow understand these things. Um, so it's important to be able to be mindful, right? You don't know what you don't know. You're not gonna understand every identity, every culture, but you can make an effort, um, so you can improve your conflict resolution, right? Um, so through essential frameworks of face negotiation theory and social identity theories, um, we can empower organization leaders to foster an environment where conflict is viewed as an opportunity for constructive dialogue and growth rather than a source of division and discourse. So instead of being a face threat, being able to negotiate through being like, oh, well, what do you mean? This might be an issue, or oh, I didn't think about that identity. So let's talk about this identity. Like, how is that playing in here, kind of deal. Um, and as for that, that is the last of my thoughts. And here are my sources. Thank you so much.